is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. We are the builders of our own evolution with our imagination, such as Carrie already shared. And so how do we do this? We do this through our minds. Everything is created twice, first in the mind and then in substance. We are the builders of the future with our words, our beliefs, our prayers, and our visions, creating 5 minutes from now, creating a year from now, creating 10 years from now. So I'm inviting you to be with me in this time. And I bring up fractals because fractals is how we see the whole, which is made up of smaller identical parts. So the smaller parts mirror to create the larger parts. And fractals happen in nature, and we are nature. And so looking at this offers an example of how we really look at a problem as large as white supremacy, because what starts in the intimate duplicates and creates the macro. So whatever we want to see in the macro in our larger society, we really have to start working from the micro, from the inside, to create the outer world. So today, what does freedom look like? What does freedom from white supremacy feel like? It may seem like a difficult thing to imagine, but it only becomes what we think it will through our imagination, our visioning, and our co-creating that future. So today I'm giving an offering of my imagination into that future. And in my imagination, there's a National Reparations Council led by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Sonia Renee Taylor. They are bringing forth reparations in this country, state by state, city by city, and creating a national truth and reconciliation program that goes through and is paid for at the same time as the military is being defunded, because the values of truth are overcome with the commitment to reconciliation. And in this process, I see and know white-bodied people taking the charge, doing the work to change and focus in and face into the necessary work of transmuting internalized white supremacy, of transmuting and recognizing the histories and past experiences that we have. And so, of course, this turns into an unprecedented amount of apologies, both public and private, as the United States of amnesia begins to crumble in the face of truth and reconciliation becomes a reality. But of course, an apology is only the beginning, because after an apology, we have to create change. And so on my vision forward, Native peoples all over this country are given lands back, and their wisdom and values are honored by becoming in charge of the National Park Services and the other natural resources in this land. So in this picture, I see Native American people in this land, Ohlone people, recognizing their contribution to this world, to the natural resources, and really learning from their values and their way of holding and rematriating the land. In my imagination, I always see national monuments such as this one that honors the lives of those lost to lynchings, that they become all over this nation so that we have a commitment to telling the truth, so that this collectively calms our nervous system, so we recognize the truth. And of course, as we unfold into truth and reconciliation, defunding the police becomes a natural experience. Because when the truth comes out, it becomes impossible to justify the police system that we have once known it. And of course, this shifts and transforms. And in the transition from the policing that we once knew, community responders, networks of locally respected and skilled people form crisis response teams. Are large when there's a big harm that has happened. And sometimes they're small, showing up with 5 or 6 people at a crisis situation going on in the community. And so as prisons are closing, restorative justice circles become ingrained in how we relate to each other, how we navigate conflict and harm. So whether that's happening in the schools, in our work environments, or even when we're in a camping trip and we have to come together and talk about what has happened. And so, of course, as I mentioned, the schools are shifting, changing, that there's culturally relevant teaching, curriculum development has spread across the country in organizations such as the Black Teacher Project. Teachers are paid a high salary. There's been a complete overhaul of outdated curriculum, and there's high incentives for teachers from local communities to work in schools. because representation matters. Our young people are learning about the diverse and complex histories they see themselves in, their cultures are represented, and this is building a strong sense of confidence and sense of self in our younger generation. And these are the beginnings of those fractals that are building up, and they're creating our media of today. So similar to this show, Kim's Convenience, every single person to the left has their own movie or show representing the complex truths of who they are. I see our media transforming and changing to be a representation of the true diversity of this land. And yes, as we change and shift to decreasing white supremacy, taking it all away, there are times when people come together of multiple races, multiple cultures in joy and love and connection. And I also want to acknowledge that still, even in this time, people often still want to be around people who are similar to them. And that I see in this future that every single one of these groupings of people still is alive, vibrant, joyful in the absence of racism. Because beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation. By each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. And so as in fractals, we cannot become what we want by remaining what we are. We have to transform within so that our larger society transforms. So thank you very much. And I think Carrie might be jumping on, but that's the, yes, collectivity calming our nervous system. Hey, Carrie.
Hi there. Thank you, Kusum. That was powerful. So much. Way to open up. Thank you so much. I did want to open this time up for the audience. It's your time to ask Kusum, expand on what she has said, ask her questions. So please put something in chat. And while you all are developing some questions for Kusum, I will kick it off with one that I have that I'll be asking of all speakers. So Kusum, when we talk about community empowerment and this post-white supremacist world that we're aspiring to live in, what are some of the things that we can all do as individuals to actualize this vision that you've put forward for the future?
I think one of the skills that we have to get good at is accountability. I think a skill and accountability, and this comes for all of us, though of course people with more levels of social privilege have more accountability that needs to be held. But I think in general, we are a culture that wants to ignore things that happen and want to put them under the rug and act like it didn't happen. When there's a conflict, we go off and just tell all the people about it and why they were wrong, we were wronged, instead of actually facing in and saying, wow, I don't know what happened, but I'm willing to step into this place and say, what can I do to make it better? It's building a muscle in ourselves to say, I'm willing to sit in this really hard conversation. Resmaa Menakem talks about it in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, facing into clean pain. Mm-hmm. In between clean pain and dirty pain. And clean pain is the pain that, yeah, it's hard, it's challenging, it might be painful in the moment, but afterwards there's a freedom. Whereas dirty pain is not having those conversations, maybe pushing off your pain later, but it shows up in your nervous system that never really settles because you're living in a state of shame and blame. Yeah, so that's one thing. I mean, there's tons of things, but that's the first thing that comes up.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm just reviewing the chat and trying to source other things. Emergent strategy and pleasure activism. Maybe you could expand there. I know a lot of folks gave shout outs to Adrienne Marie Brown. So perhaps you can talk more about that.
Yeah, Adrienne is definitely one of my my mentors. We know each other through somatics, so I've done a little bit of work, but other than that, I just am a follower and a believer. I have all of her, so many of the values that come out of emergent strategy on my wall that I run my thoughts through, but fractals really was the thing that I knew about fractals before, but really learning it through emergent strategy was so helpful, of this idea that everything is recreating itself in the same way. And so when I think about it, and I think about even restorative justice, oftentimes in our media now, it's like, oh, we need restorative justice, we need restorative justice. But then the same people were saying that we need it, we don't know how to do it in our own lives. And so if we can't create it in our own homes, in our own neighborhoods, in our own towns, how can we ask for a much larger government change or societal change in it? So I think like everything in the minute is the same as the macro. And yeah, nature as emergent strategies, nature is the guide. Yes.
Wonderful. And so we have time, I know we kind of are running a little bit behind, so we don't have as much time for the Q&A, but we will take one more question that I see that came in from Murali. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Kusum, what you are saying is very much along the lines of outward mindset that the Arbinger Institute evangelizes. Have you heard about Arbinger? So
I have not. I would love to read up. Maybe if there's specifics about it, it would be helpful to be able to, if there's a question to answer. But I'm excited to learn more.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I will want to say, because a couple people said something in the United States of amnesia. And I do really believe that is a value system that this country has led from, of this idea that we can just live in a place of, it's like, I call it convenient amnesia, that a lot of people live from this, I don't remember that. But definitely remember 9/11, right? There's these like moments where we have to remember always. Yep. We should always remember 9/11, but we'll just conveniently forget hundreds of years of slavery and conveniently forget the colonization and the takeover. So it's just, this country, it's like we have to break open that piece in order to get to this next place that we're visioning into. So